a great way to get a fast judgment when you're representing business merchants. All right. Any other questions on motion for summary judgment, the assignment? Anything before I move on to trial procedure? All right, everybody good? Okay, so next week we're going to have a mock trial. And every other semester, what we did was we would meet in the trial courtroom and we would spend the couple of hours going through an actual mock trial so you could get a feel for how it works. Let me see, show of hands, wave across the screen. How many of y'all have watched a full civil trial from, okay, Robert, Nick, Mike, JT, Fernando's giving me thumbs up. Okay, about half of you. Ian, have you watched the trial? I'm gonna mute you.
I'm so muted. Sorry about that. I don't think I've watched an entire trial ever.
Okay. So about half of you have, half of you haven't. It always seemed to me that it'd be a shame for people to get out of law school and graduate and be ready to be lawyers without ever having at least some conception, beginning to end, of what a trial is. And so that's why from the beginning, when I teach this class, I devoted one class to it. So we'll walk through that. And we're in a different paradigm now because of the COVID-19. Courts are not having traditional trials, and we as a law school can't get into the courtroom to do the mock trial. And so we're going to try it through Zoom, but we'll go pretty fast, and we just want to do some examples. But the rest of today, I want to assign roles for one thing and talk about the sequence of the trial. And then next week, we are going to start class as if I was convening a bench trial. You know, we haven't found a way that we can do jury trials by Zoom, but courts all over Texas right now are doing Zoom bench trials, bench hearings, evidentiary hearings. And so I wanted to practice for my own benefit partly, and also for y'all's experience, to at least spend half of next class walking through what a Zoom trial might look like. And I've been watching a few of them to see how they work in practice, and they're working pretty well, surprisingly well. And one of the things I've observed is I think the lawyers, the participants, the judges are much more focused on Zoom, polite, and it seems to be even more effective process than you have in the courtroom. So it seems to be working. And so we'll see how that works next week. The environment we're in. The Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals has said we're not going to have any non-essential in-court processes at all until May 8th. And even essential things, we're not going to have more than 10 people in a courtroom. So we need to manage to that. We need to keep social distancing. If you want to have a civil trial, which almost always are viewed as non-essential, then you can do that on Zoom, or you can wait. And if you want to do it on Zoom, what's happening is you have to do it by agreement. And the reason for that is judges haven't figured out how to compel someone under threat of criminal contempt of court to appear. And even if you did, no effective way to have a sheriff go compel them to go sit in front of a monitor to participate. And anyway, it's just not practical. So if you want to have a hearing, it needs to be by agreement, unless it's essential. And the essential hearings are things like bond hearings or on family law or civil side TROs where there's an imminent risk of harm or irreparable damage. And those can be held by Zoom without agreement, and they're contested hearings. So that's the world we're in, and it's happening all around Texas. I just got said, yes.
Is Zoom like the preferred method? Is there like room in the market for like a legal centered kind of video conference hearing conference, startup to come about?
I have not heard of anything, but I think it would be a great, if any technical entrepreneur could come up with something that would work better and that would more closely reflect the in-person paradigm we're used to, I think that'd be pretty lucrative. What happened is the courts all had to react on the fly. And by the way, Jaime, I think it's coming. There's probably people out there working on it. And innovative startups, I think, can make a ton of money. Although we attorneys are pretty cheap you can't, I signed up for my own, I don't even know what it is, $14 a month professional subscription or something to Zoom. Most attorneys don't want to commit to that. Believe it or not, there's this mindset, kind of like students, frankly, that, if we got to pay for a subscription, we're not going to pay. We'll find a workaround. So the courts negotiated with Zoom a way that, although I paid for this, but just because I was lazy, I did it before it was available otherwise. But the courts have all negotiated a license with Zoom so that we have unlimited recorded. And now I just realized I think I have been recording. Sorry, it was automatic. Let me cancel that. So we're still recording. Good, because we're supposed to. But yeah, Jaime, to your question, I think if there were a way that some of these makers of trial assisting software could help organize exhibits and arrange a secure streaming, they would find a ready market. The only question is if courts and attorneys would be willing to pay for that, if it would be a significant enough improvement. So what happened is, in the beginning, necessity is the mother of invention, and we all scrambled. What are we going to do? How are we going to get our cases moved, or the court shut down? And they looked at Facebook Live. They looked at Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, different sorts of alternatives. And they're rapidly coalesced around a consensus that Zoom works the best. And so far, it seems to be doing very well. Now, the Texas Supreme Court, in their order, has emphasized that courts are open to the public. And y'all all know that, right? We have an open court world where citizens have a constitutional right to walk into every courtroom and watch how their government is functioning. Judges are elected officials, and we're subject to public observation. So the Texas Supreme Court has said that, in this time of crisis, as a workaround, you can have Zoom hearings, and it's not shall, I don't believe it should, because it's not happening everywhere. I don't remember the exact wording, but they said courts should stream live everything that they're doing by Zoom. Very few courts have started this. I'm going to try to see how it works by following what Collin County Judge Miskell does, and she uses YouTube. So I'm going to try that so I get experience with it. A couple of courts are using Facebook Live, but you have, if the public wants to join in, they have to create a Facebook account. Just today, I should have done it earlier, but today I set up a YouTube channel, which is Adjunct Professor Jim Johnson. Put a couple of videos out there and tried to test streaming, but they said, I have a 24-hour waiting period before I'm approved, but I'll be approved next week. I'm going to try to stream and have at least my wife in the other room watch to see that it works, just to see how this works. But Judge Miskell does it. You can look at judgeemily.com or Google 470th District Court on YouTube channel. And what courts are concerned, right? Because, and why would courts be concerned, Jaime? What difference is there from us streaming live versus letting people walk in and watch?
From the public point of view?
Yeah. Or from court operations?
I'm not, I don't know really what the court would be concerned if. Maybe they wouldn't want this footage being used in improper ways. I could use it you could screen capture what's going on your computer and then use it, or edit it, or change the context by chopping certain parts out and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of two major concerns. We don't allow video. Someone else had a comment?
Yeah, is it also that you'll be able to see who all the people are that's watching, and so there's like, I don't know, so just kind of like everyone who comes in and steps in, you'll be able to go and see more about them and look at their Facebook page, and so there's like a privacy type concern. Maybe.
Yeah, it might take some work to do that. I mean, most people on YouTube can just watch a streaming anonymously, can't they? But you could find their IP address and such.
Yeah.
And it's always been a debate, but in Texas, we generally don't allow some exceptions, but as a rule, cameras aren't allowed in the courtroom. We don't permit people to video or record court proceedings. And the reason that we don't do that is there's one record, and I think this is a concern. You have to have one official record for appellate purposes and just for uniformity, and what's on the record, what's not. Unending disputes maybe if we had although maybe it's better, but the actual live stream, the court reporter record and the evidence that gets admitted is the record. Nothing else, and a lot of extraneous things happen, things that get discussed, presented, not admitted, objected to, that maybe don't find their way into the final record, but would be part of the video record, and that could cause some confusion or concern. You could take the video out of context. A lot of sensitive things are happening in courtrooms. embarrassing things. And courts need to be public, but that doesn't mean that that person's laundry needs to be broadcast for millions of hits on YouTube. And so, and then the final thing is a technical thing called the rule of exclusion of witnesses. And anybody know what that is, where you invoke the rule or put it, what is it, JT?
It's where I think, with maybe exception to like expert witnesses, that witnesses can't be in the courtroom when other witnesses are testifying.
If the rule's invoked.
That's
so
right.
either
That's right.
party can invoke the rule, or parties can choose, we don't care. And there's a good reason for it. You don't want people that are testifying influenced by what other people have said to modify their testimony. I generally invoke the rule. And that just keeps all witnesses out of the courtroom so they're not tainted to tailor their testimony to fit what others have said, to be consistent and not contradict. Now, as JT said, you can't exclude experts because they have the ability to hear everything that's happening and inform their expert opinion, and parties can't be excluded, but all other witnesses can. Now, there's no way to, there are all sorts with Zoom, and we talked about the technology. Next week, I'll try the waiting room, and you admit people into the Zoom meeting, and then you can put them back into a waiting room. There's also, did y'all know that? There's also functions where, like, if JT is Nick's client and y'all need to confer about something, I can move y'all into a private Zoom conference room. And then once I do that, it would only, and I may try that, see how it works. Only the two of you would appear on your screen. You could have a private confidential discussion. And then at the appropriate time, I could move y'all back into the courtroom, right? And so there's a lot of powerful things you can do. However, if you're streaming the main courtroom live on YouTube, you have no assurance that all the witnesses aren't sitting there watching all proceedings. And it's just the best we can do. And you would hope people would follow the rules, but many times they won't. One thing that's been said that's kind of a stark reality is people don't follow the rule now. People text, they cheat, and you just do the best you can under threat of contempt if you know they cheated. So that's how we're doing things. What's that?
That sounds like a pretty good option for like mediation, like family mediation. So I worked for a firm that like we did divorce mediation, or part of what he did was divorce mediation. So I sat in a few times, and it was awkward when the spouses would both go to the restroom at the same time, even though they were in their different separated rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like, putting people into different groups, and then you as a mediator being able to jump into them as needed, and then even combine them if necessary, or then have a room for just you and the attorneys. Seems really bad.
I agree. I think once we get it going, that may open up a whole new mediation practice that's more convenient for everybody versus kind of the awkward process of hauling people into a big office complex with conference rooms at opposite ends of the building. So yeah, I think this is perfect for mediation, and more mediators are advertising themselves as virtual mediators. All right, let me pull up the